Okay, folks, we'll call a meeting to order. And you have had the agenda for a few days. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Councillor Tower, seconded by Deputy Mayor Aiken. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Question period. Any questions from the audience, please?
Hello, good evening. My name is Shelley Chase. On July 8th, I came to Council with questions regarding the cancellation of Sackville's Canada Day celebrations. The answers that I received over the next couple weeks created additional questions regarding how special events in Sackville, their budgeting, contingency planning, communications, and the accountability to the public are facilitated. With the permission of Mayor and Council, I'd like to raise these questions with a little bit of context. There are questions, but I just felt that it was important to have a little bit of context in advance. With your permission, Your Worship, I'd like to proceed. Okay. Also, I'd like to ask Mr. Burke if I can quote some of our correspondence. It is in context, and if you have any issues with that, I'm happy to have you speak to that as well. Okay, thank you. When I asked who decided to and on whose authority to cancel Canada Day, Mr. Burke responded July 19th via email as follows. After meeting internally as a department for a few years ago when the weather was questionable, we determined that the event was not well attended when moved inside in the past. Using that information, we had a discussion on Friday before Canada Day weekend and determined then it would be cancelled. So my first question is, when you cancelled it on Friday, June 28th, internally, why were citizens not informed until Monday, July 1st, 8:26 a.m. on Facebook was the first notice I had? And is a 3-day delay of communication after cancelling events normal departmental policy? Also, the event was promoted and the rain venue also on Saturday, June 29th on Facebook a day after you decided to cancel it. So I just wanted some clarification on that from, I don't know who would be answering.
Okay, would you like to go through all of your questions?
Yes, there's not that many, Your Worship.
And then,
Yeah.
as opposed to trying to answer one at a time and perhaps
Oh, no,
going elsewhere.
I mean, I will
Okay.
take an answer now, certainly.
Okay, so just continue with the,
Oh, you don't want to answer right now?
no, let's
Okay.
go through with your list
Sure,
of
great.
questions. and-
Okay. Further to that, Mr. Burke said, at this point we realized that the ad in the paper had said it would be at the rink, but felt given the scale of our event, it would not be of the quality we expect from our events to hold it in the rink. With the park, we have the luxury of a playground and a splash pad that add another element to our event. Without these two pieces, we felt that there would not be enough going on in the rink for it to be the quality we expect. So I'm just wondering there what was meant by scale. Were your event plans too small or too big in your eyes to be held at the rink? And what do you mean by quality we expect? I just don't understand. Is the quality you expect for a Municipal Canada Day celebration for the existing splash pad and the playground to be the driving engagement activities? Because when I looked at what was submitted, there was a cake, there was a band, but then it felt like the whole reason that it couldn't be moved into the rink was the splash pad and the playground. So I was like, well, that's not really an event. So I would like some clarification on that. And with the 9 summer recreation students that were hired, why were there no additional activities other than utilizing a playground and a splash pad? No games, no face painting, nothing that could be, I still don't understand why this couldn't be moved into the rink and why it was decided 3 days in advance and the public not notified so they could make plans for their long weekend. So that's part 1 and 2 of that. Shall I carry on?
Yep.
Okay. So obviously my interest is in special events. I asked for the income and expense statement at the council meeting for Bordertown with a breakdown of event items that I hope would illustrate a fiscal benefit or profit or a large long-term cultural footprint for the quality of life of improvement for our residents here in Sackville. I understand that not everything is measured financially, but that there should be a big cultural benefit to our community. So I asked these questions. Mr. Spurls said the 5-year-old event was a success, and I am still trying to understand how that is measured. I was provided the financials for the Joel Plaskett event and the James Mullinger event by Mr. Burke, but the advertising, as it was explained to me, is not broken out or included in the budget. There's a blanket advertising program for the year. Mr. Burke told me, and I quote, "Our financial record keeping is done in accordance with the Province of New Brunswick Municipal Accounting, and it prescribes how we record revenue and expenditures, which is much different than that of a private business, and private business is what my my expertise is in. So I was curious, so I called the department provincially for the municipal government financial officers in Fredericton so I could learn, and they confirmed that yes, municipalities do not have to provide that type of cost analysis on events broken out event by event, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have that measurement internally. So my question is, what tangible measurement system do you use to calculate the benefit to residents versus expenditure, especially on these large expenditures, if you're doing accounting much differently than that of a private business? And again, I understand that cultural footprint to the community can be part of that, but I'm still not seeing where there was such a large outlay of finances and the footprint was only ever maximum 279 people in that Vogue Theatre and 180 tickets sold. I still want to understand that. And my final question comes from the recent Chalk events. So we've spoken about Canada Day, Bordertown, and also the Chalk Festival. I was there. This goes back to contingency planning as well. Personally, I just had the contract to coordinate the entertainment for Mount Allison University's orientation. We booked a tent, we booked the sound company, we booked porta potties, we booked a generator, we did all kinds of things to ensure that this free open air community event could happen regardless of the weather. And we had a contingency on a contingency should the hurricane come in. We were going into Convocation Hall with no electricity. We still could have held that event because it was important to bring the community together. The Chalk Festival didn't use the contingency of the Civic Center as I understood because there's only a 30% chance of rain. The event went ahead on Bridge Street. I was in attendance. I was working with Stacey Reed, who has a local fiddle group, and when it started, it was raining. So Stacey called Mr. Pride, and she said, it's raining. And Mr. Pride said, there's only a 30% chance of rain. Well, there's a 100% chance we're standing in rain right now downtown. So we asked Lauren, the student that was there, and she was very lovely and very accountable to us, and she said that she had planned and she had ordered the tent that I understand the town does have to be over the stage to protect the valuable instruments, the electronics. This was an easy fix, and that Mr. Pride had in fact canceled that. So I am still trying to understand why contingency plans are so difficult for the department, and also how we're measuring the cultural footprint or the expenditures of special events in this town. Those are my questions. And I would love it if I could have answers tonight. I did wait quite a long time for these answers and had to receive many communications to do that. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay.
Should I sit down or remain standing for the answers?
Pardon me?
Should I sit down or remain standing for the answers?
We might as well stand. I
Okay.
think those are pretty comprehensive questions you've asked. I'm not sure that we
Thank
can
you.
all reply to that right now. I would agree in terms of your measuring benefits. One of the things we've been trying to do is get a larger impact benefit, because many of the downtown events in particular are there at the request of the retailers of that area, who have asked and pointed out that they have certain elements of spring and summer where their sales drop drastically because people are not coming. So one of the main reasons is to respond to that request from our commercial operators, entrepreneurs, to bring more people in to assist them in those downtimes. So in terms of measuring those benefits, we've been trying over the last couple of years to begin to create some kind of a feedback mechanism that gives us some economic impact for that major reason that we conduct these type of events. And I think we are only starting to get some of those in a methodologically sound manner. So I think that part is certainly an area that we are looking at improving as we move it along, and getting feedback to the commercial people who have asked for that kind of an increase that allows them to increase their sales in those low, slow times. So I'm not sure where, there's a lot of questions here. I am not able to answer all of these right now. Is there any suggestions, CIO, if we should get back, or?
Well, I guess I would defer to our staff. They may or may not have the responses this evening, but I'd direct the questions to them, Your Worship, and to see what they can at least offer this evening.
Mr. Pride?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you, Shelley. So in terms of Canada Day, we did have a discussion on the Friday night, or Friday afternoon, I guess, at the office, and we determined that if it was raining, that we would cancel the event. So we didn't actually determine at that time that we were going to cancel for sure. So that's the main reason why it wasn't announced until a few days later. We were still hopeful that the weather would turn out. Yeah, I mean, I fully admit we did not have a contingency plan for Canada Day. It was something we had talked about a few years ago, that it wasn't well attended, so we had, there was a time there a few years ago where the weather was a little sketchy, and at that time we thought that we would just cancel it as well. Somehow the ad made it past 3 or 4 sets of eyes to get into the into the Tribune, that it would be at the Civic Center, and you know, that's unfortunate. We apologized for that. That being said, it's not going to happen again. We've already discussed the the next Canada Day, and there will definitely be a contingency plan in place. In terms of the quality piece, the nice thing about the park is that it does have natural features there. So, or I guess additional features like the splash pad and the playground that Ms. Chase mentioned. So, we do have 5 programming staff. We did have a program planned for the event, so there was going to be face painting, crafts. We had a clown, and to make balloon animals, and we had a bouncy castle, plus the music that was mentioned, and the cake. So, but still, the Civic Center is a big floor space. So when you move basically 5 pieces inside the Civic Center, we just didn't feel like it was going to provide the type of event that we come to expect. Like our events are normally pretty top-notch overall, I think, and just the idea of trying to envision 5 small tables in the rink plus the music, I just can't picture it being successful. And after talking to the program coordinator and a couple other folks on staff, it really sounded like it wasn't something that would be successful anyways in terms of people participating. So that's why we made that decision. Was it the right decision? Maybe not. We've heard lots of people in the public provide feedback about this, and you know, I appreciate that. But what we have started doing is thinking about what we could do to make it look better in the rink should we come to that in the future. So this year for New Brunswick Day, and without breaking the bank, I guess, so budget is always an issue. So for New Brunswick Day this year, we contacted several community organizations and had them come up and set up tables and offer activities. So we'd probably look at doing something similar like that for Canada Day, which would, you know, not cost the town much of anything other than loaning some tables and maybe some craft supplies, that sort of thing, and it would add to the overall event. The Chalk Festival, excuse me. Yeah, it's right. It's correct. We had a contingency plan to go into the rink. On the Thursday evening, I believe it was, we decided that it was calling for sun all weekend, so we said, let's go for it on the street. And if we were to move into the rink, there was work that needed to be done. We had to purchase canvas. We had to put primer on that canvas. I forget the technical term for the primer, but we had to prep it for the artists. That's something that couldn't be done in a day. We had to make an advance call on that. In terms of the tent to go over the stage, we did. Loren wasn't completely correct in what she was saying. We had we were going to bring the shade tent that the Minor Hockey Association uses during Family Day at the Doncaster Farm for their barbecue. We were going to bring that down and set it up on the street for the people watching and listening to the music, not for the stage itself. It wouldn't be high enough to put up on the stage. But you're right, Shelley, we know it's better to cover the stage. That's feedback that we got from a couple people this year, a couple of musicians. Loren did talk to all of the musicians and the artists after the event, and that was something that came up. And council just needs to understand that there is a financial consequence to that. So this year, we had a $15,000 budget to work with. We wanted to bring in some professional chalk artists, which costs money. We also did a call for submissions as well, which we were able to pay people for a slightly lower rate, but we decided to prioritize our funding, or our money that we had, into the artists and the musicians, rather than covering the stage. In hindsight, it's a shame that the Little Jills weren't able to complete their set, but other than that one act, everybody did manage to complete their set, and the artists were happy, and most of the musicians were happy. So, yeah, it's definitely something we'd look into in the future, covering the stage, or bringing in a covered stage. But there's definitely a cost to that, and if we were to use our own tent that that council purchased a couple years ago, we would have to bring someone in to set that up. We don't have the certifications and qualifications to set that tent up, so there would be an additional cost to that would need to be considered. I think I got everything. Is that?
Councillor, any other comments from staff on that? Mr. Burke?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Shelley. I guess I'll tackle the cultural question as it relates to Bordertown. I guess there's not just one event that makes us a cultural landmark or creates that cultural identity. That happens over years and years of work by not just the municipality, but a variety of local organizations and grassroots organizations who volunteer to make these events happen. Public art, Sappy Fest, our own infrastructure that we've invested to create these types of event spaces and proud partnerships, I guess, are all part of our efforts to, create that cultural measurement that we've used over the past to be the cultural capital of Canada, the cultural crossroads of the Maritimes, the new kind of small town. So we're working, I guess, diligently, not just with our events, but in our marketing as well, to help people talk about Sackville. When the Harvest Jazz and Blues Festival, lets you know that we put on a heck of a lineup for Bordertown, I think that starts to speak some volumes about the cultural identity, I guess, that the Bordertown Festival has started to achieve. This isn't a staff decision. Bordertown is a decision of council. They set our budget. They've graciously supported this festival year after year for the last 5 years. And I want to reiterate what the mayor said earlier, that this really stemmed from the local business community who, unlike a lot of other communities across New Brunswick and across Canada, we struggle to attract tourists here in the summer. And when the students leave, we feel that there's a bit of an obligation on us. The business community felt there was somewhat of an obligation on us to produce another type of festival to help attract people here and get them to come and visit and stay and spend money in some of our local establishments. So that's where the Bordertown idea originated from. And we're very proud of how the festival has gone on over the last 5 years. And again, when we get to budget time this year, it'll be another decision of council on whether or not just the finances, but the cultural footprint that leaves on the community will continue in the years to come.
Closing comment, Your Worship, and thank you for the opportunity and thank you for the answers. Just for the record, I still don't feel that there's a consistency in the messaging that's coming from the different departments or managers. And there was quite a lot of communication that was sent to me. None of it seems to match up with what anyone is saying. And I still don't feel that we have a tangible record of how these decisions and large expenditures are being made. But I'd like to thank Mr. Burke for explaining the industry I've worked in for 25 years to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I appreciate that you've raised some stuff that we clearly are learning from, and as Mr. Burke says, we're going into our budgeting in the next month, and we'll be dealing with some of the matters that you've raised, because there are some things we certainly want to improve on. Thank you for that. Any other questions?
Mayor and Council, Sharon Hicks. I just have a couple of things. My first one actually does have to do with the Chalk Festival too. After the first Chalk Festival back in 2017, I raised the question at the next council meeting as to why there was no portable washrooms on site for the patrons to use. That year, on the Friday night when we attended, we discovered that Mel's Restaurant remained open until 11, and they normally close at 9, to allow people to use their restroom facilities. The reply I received to my question at that time was to the effect that it had been an unfortunate oversight and that next time they would make sure that that aspect of human necessity was covered, not in those exact words. I wasn't able to attend this year's festival, but I have talked to a number of citizens and some performers who did attend, and it appears that once again there were no public washroom facilities on site. I heard again about how people were using the washroom facilities at Mel's and probably other locations as well. So my first question is, were there facilities planned that didn't materialize? Or were there portable washrooms set up that were kind of hidden away and nobody noticed them? Or was this important necessity once again overlooked?
Thank you. Mr. Pratt?
Thank you, Sharon. Nope, it was discussed to have them there, and after talking about it with Loren, and her communicating with the businesses downtown, when she went around to let people know about the festival, it seemed that the businesses were excited about having the extra foot traffic in their businesses, so we didn't go with the porta potties this year. That being said, when she was talking to some of the artists in particular, they would have appreciated having something down there. So last year, in 2017, we did not get that feedback from artists that they would like to have something, but we did this year. So if those people that are spending their time hours at a time down here providing a service to us need those washroom facilities, then we'd certainly look into doing it next time if council wanted to have the Chalk Festival back.
Okay, so 2 years from now, I won't be standing here asking the same question again? Or 1 year, or whenever the next one might be? My other issue that I wanted to raise right now has to do with heritage issue. Last year, after the Heritage Board was dissolved and the Heritage Bylaw was repealed, we were told that some other initiative would be established to take their place. Sackville was left with absolutely no official oversight on anything to do with the historical aspects of our town. Over years past now, and to my knowledge, there's been nothing further done in this respect. So my first question is, what is the current status of that goal, that is to establish some other initiative? And are there any plans in place yet to establish such an alternate plan?
Mr. Burke, please.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Sharon. Yes, there are plans to establish a new program, and it's specifically mentioned in the business development strategy as one of the action items, recognizing, I guess, that we have a variety of kind of community grant organizations, one being Renaissance Sackville, who also over the years have administered a facade improvement program, and the second being the Heritage Grant Conservation Program, which obviously, as you rightly noted, no longer exists because of the repeal of the bylaw and dissolving of the board. So that is on the to-do list, and that will be something that we talk about at budget time, including the development of a program to support those types of grants going forward.
And so will there then be a liaison committee of councillors appointed to oversee such an initiative or an organization, or whatever you want to term it as?
Well, we don't know what form that's going to take, so council will decide what they want to do with heritage, and then we'll look at the structure at that point. So that would be premature to say we're going to target to have a liaison council for heritage.
But you said that there is something coming forward then for the budget discussions, correct? Did I understand that correctly?
That's correct. In order for the grant money to be available, it would have to be allocated in the 2020 operational budget.
Okay, any other questions from the audience? No? All right, we shall move on to disclosure of interest. Councilors, any disclosures of interest for any items? Hearing none, move to minutes. Page 3, special meeting with council August 6. Moved by adoption by Deputy Mayor Aiken. Seconded by Councillor Black. Question from Councillor Michaud, please.
Thank you, Worship. At our meeting August 12th, we had delayed these minutes due to the fact that the opening of that meeting was not recorded, and there was discussion around additional information possibly being applied to or included in the minutes in regards to that. After reading through, I don't note anything in addition. I'm just kind of wondering what the discussion was around that, and
Can I ask Deputy Clerk?
Thank you, Councillor Michaud. After reviewing the minutes of August 6th, it was determined that the minutes in written form are accurate as presented and consistent with the Local Governance Act. So the motion, the vote, and the decision. As you are aware, there was no recording of the August 6th meeting. So therefore, I'm unable to record accurately the discussion around that motion. As you are all aware, we've made some changes to that. The August 26th meeting, we did record the public portion of that special meeting of council, and we will continue with that process going forward. So at this time, the minutes were not changed for the August 6th.
So in sum, the minutes themselves will include the motion, but the tape of that section prior to that would be posted. Right, okay. Okay. Question on the minutes? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Page 7, regular council meeting, August 12th. Moved by Councillor Evans, seconded by Councillor Butcher. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Special meeting, August 26th, on page 18. Moved by Councillor Evans, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. And special meeting of September 3rd on page 19, moved by Councillor Tower, seconded by Councillor Butcher. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Any business arising from the minutes? I do not have any. Any from councillors? Hearing none. Southeast Regional Service Commission. I'll begin with that. The last meeting included a look at the nature of the budget for the coming year, and a variety of points that I would like to note with you in the budget at that time was, number one, the tipping fees, that residential units will be the same as last year, $57 per unit. Non-recycled is going from 109, this is the construction, non-recycled, 109 to $116 per ton. Recycled, in that same category, was 75 last year, and will go down to $60 a ton. So the differential, as we've talked about for the last couple of years, went from $34 for recycling to now $56 between recycling and not recycling in the ICI elements, and there's no change in the residential pickup per cost. So as we talked about, the way to force to use a market mechanism and a cost to move people to recycling is still being implemented and will be for the next couple of years. Noted that regional planning, its budget went up quite a bit. However, that was due because Riverview has chosen to take services from the Planning Commission, and they will pay the 91% of the increase directly because of their purchase of those services. So the actual cost in planning goes up minutely, but 91% of the overall cost is because of Riverview choosing to change their planning services to the Regional Service Commission. Both the governance costs of both the PRAC meetings and the board meetings both went down because both chose to have less meetings throughout the year. So there was some savings on each of those areas. A couple of other interesting items was that there was a proposal, as you heard here, Rural Rides has expanded in various forms across the region, including here with Rural Rides here in Tantramar. And a request was made that there is a whole variety of disparate bodies working on transportation under the same sort of helping those who can't afford transportation throughout the region, with some gaps here and there. And the cost of the number of volunteers that have to get on, how they take phone calls, how they contact individuals and dispatch had become quite a problem across all of them. So they were asking the regional service if it would considered some assistance in centralizing the dispatch function and perhaps monitor whether there was a way in the future that that could be better coordinated and if there might be a role for the regional service in order to continue the service but make it more effective so it can continue with the same sorts of organizational structures that it has. And so it is a small amount in the budget for creating some dispatch assistance for that, but it will also be a study of how effective that works and whether there are other methods that that group can move forward with to provide the service. The process, the board indicated that the budget was fine to be sent out for review to the municipal governments. It's been sent out, and I think our staff have been invited to a workshop. It might even be tomorrow, I think. Once that meeting is held and individual governments have their opportunity to put in comments, there will be some adjustments made, and the board itself will look at whatever budget comes out of that on October 29th. The other item was more in terms of actual day-to-day. The overall, just a sec before I go through that, I think, Michael, do you remember the total budget change was it was under 2%. It was 1.6 total. And much of that was actually in regional services planning, which was involved Riverview. So the overall budget increase is 1.6, and on October 29th, we'll make a final decision on what the budget will look like. The other thing that I did want to mention was that a presentation was made through the planning director and highlighting adaptation permits for those in floodplain zones. And of course, our area shows up in a floodplain zone on the maps, and we were trying to determine whether those permits were based upon our existing floodplain map or whether the new data that we've heard as being worked on for some time has arrived, and if so, do we have to adjust our floodplain map? And the answer wasn't clear to us, so we may ask Ms. Bickford to address that later on. But there's certainly a state of flux in the manner in which floodplains are defined and what type of role. It is only given a legislative role through the bylaws of the local government, so it will come back to us at some point as to how to implement that. So any comments or questions on the budget? That's the main thing I wanted to talk about. Councillor Evans?
Yeah, two comments. The first one has to do with the increasing the differential in the tipping fees. This is something that I welcome. I don't think it's enough, and it's not happening fast enough, but I understand that the wheels sometimes grind slowly. But I want to see us extend the sorting to all properties in town, and I hope it will be a service that's provided by the town. I was persuaded by the arguments presented to me about why it didn't make sense for us to go it alone to start with. But this is one of the things that had to happen before it would start to make sense that we could do it all together. So I'm really pleased that that's happening. And I'm also really pleased about the essential dispatching for these rural rides and other services. There are a number of people in our communities for whom transportation is a huge problem, whether it's to get health care, whether it's to do shopping or banking. And for those, it sounds like is it a Keith commercial? What is the one? Those who like it a lot. It's hugely important to some segments of our community, and it's not a lot of us. And so I am pleased that this is being addressed, because these organizations are run primarily by volunteers and on donations, and anything the region can do to help it, I'm in favor of. So kudos.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Michaud.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess it's regarding the solid waste. A few months ago, I'd asked the question about getting back to a point where we were getting some updates in regards to the success rate and what we're diverting out of our landfills. We used to get that kind of on a regular basis when it was just the Solid Waste Commission on its own. And I'm just wondering if we could start getting back to that to get a better understanding as to how well we're doing. I know that, you know, compliance isn't an issue anymore, because if you don't have it sorted correctly in the bag, then you're going to get something on it and to sort it out. So that was always something they measured as well. But I think it would be good to get an understanding as to, you know, how things are going in regards to diversion. And because there is a cost every time a cell is put in place, and if we can divert more. And I think we had talked as well in regards to, and I think there were some answers around it, but the recycling aspect and how well things are going in regards to the marketplaces that they're diverting to, and if they're running into any difficulties, as other municipalities have been over the last few months in regards to finding a home for their recyclables. So,
Yes. Yeah, a very hot topic of the ability to recycle after China has closed their doors to us. Mr. Acton, is there a standing committee that you could ask for updates on waste management data like that?
Absolutely. Yep. We typically have monthly meetings, but it's been hit or miss over the last 8 months with the summer vacations or whatever, but we do get that information during our committee meetings, and any information I get, I can share that with Mayor and Council.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councilor Michaud. Any other questions? Over to you, Ms. Bickford.
In the month of August, there were 4 permits issued. This brings our year-to-date total at 5.1 million approximately. Again, up in number from permits last year, which there was only 44 at this time, but construction value down from last year's total of 21.7 million. The Planning Review and Adjustment Committee did not review any development requests from the town of Sackville during the month of August. And other projects that were worked on, staff continue to work on the review and are putting forward some proposed updates to the subdivision bylaw, which we'll be meeting with the Policy and Bylaw Committee this month, and hopefully bringing something forward soon on that to council. The finalization of the lands for public purposes off Samantha Court has taken as far as the planning department has or can, and we're just doing the registry component of it now. And as well, there is, as you're aware from last week's meeting, there is a proposed amendment to the municipal plan and zoning bylaw, which was proposed by Jan Lafford Realty. To give a quick recap of that one, what it's proposing is a senior housing and nursing care facility development at the end of Wright Street and Fawcett Street. As a result, one of the portions of the property is currently designated highway commercial on our future land use map. That would need to be amended to allow for residential uses. So that would be the amendment to the municipal plan that would be necessary for that development. As well as the proposal would also require 2 zoning amendments, one to R2, one to R3, which is medium and high density development. And the final component to that would be proposing to add, through text amendments, the nursing care facility to the R3 zone. Council will be reviewing to see if they're interested in entertaining a resolution to consider that proposed, or the 2 proposed amendments, one being the municipal plan amendment and the second being the rezoning and the amendment to the zoning bylaw. I don't know if you want me to just roll ahead and try to address the flood, or you want to frame it in a question?
Maybe you could just answer the question about the floodplain map,
Yeah.
and then we'll come back to.
Okay, so in New Brunswick, we do have some updated LiDAR data that was flown, I believe, a year or 2 ago. Most of that was processed, and when it was being processed, it was determined that there's an error, of course, in the Sackville component of it, which means that it makes it difficult to run that newer LiDAR data. We still have the older LiDAR data, which again is referring to elevations in the property, or properties in the town. So staff have been working with the province trying to determine if they're going to update that new LiDAR data to correct for that error, or whether we should proceed anyway. The big key item that I would like to point out is that the industry standard is generally based on a 1 in 100 year scenario, which would be what was presented to the regional board, because generally speaking, the majority of the other municipalities who have adopted flood mapping have used that scenario. As well, town engineering would also design any engineering around the 1 in 100 year scenario. At current time, the town has adopted the 1 in 10 year scenario. So that does have an impact as far as, that elevation that would be considered. So staff are looking at doing some comparisons and updating of at least the older LiDAR data with known elevation locations in the town of Sackville, and then presenting back to council, once that's completed, a proposal for you to review as to whether you want to consider amending your plan, amending your hydrographic map, which is what contains the flood limit. So I don't know if that
Any
covered.
time frame on that, do you know?
Certainly, right now, I know the discussion is down to getting those components of the known elevations. So I'm anticipating a fairly short turnaround on that. I'm hoping in the next month to 2 months, we should be coming back with something.
Okay, great. So you want to return to was there more you want to say about the Lafford proposal, or we go?
No, I was just giving a quick recap to refresh everybody on, but I'm certainly willing to answer any questions if there's.
Councillor Evans?
Yeah, first of all, a comment. I welcome this work being done on the incorporating the new LiDAR information into our flood map. I think this is overdue. It's something I welcome, and I'm pleased it's happening. I'm going to ask you I'm going to ask you a facetious question to help make a point. You say in your report that we have 47 permits issued this year compared to 44 last year. So that's an improvement, right? Okay. I just want to allude to the fact some people have been asking us to count meetings as if all meetings were equivalent. All permits are not equivalent either, right? So we go from 21 million down to 5 million, but we have more permits. I think this illustrates the fallacy of just counting things and not measuring things. I'll get off my soapbox.
Any other questions on the planning report? Well done. No? Okay. Resolution, or we're good? Okay, so a resolution for the planning report. Councillor Black, please.
I move that whereas council has considered an application from J.N. Lafford Realty Limited to amend bylaw number 243, the Town of Sackville Municipal Plan by changing the designation on a portion of the property known as PID 00891721 from highway commercial to urban residential on the future land use map. And whereas council has agreed to consider an amendment to bylaw 244, the Town of Sackville zoning bylaw, by adding nursing care facilities as a permitted use in the urban residential 3 zone, and by rezoning a portion of the property known as PID 00891721 from highway commercial to urban residential 3 to permit the development of multiple unit dwellings and a nursing care facility. And whereas council has agreed to consider rezoning the property known as PID 700465511 from urban residential 1 to urban residential 2 for the development of multiple unit dwellings. Be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Sackville directs that the appropriate bylaws be prepared to amend bylaw number 243, the Town of Sackville Municipal Plan, and bylaw number 244, the Town of Sackville zoning bylaw as it pertains to the above noted changes. That the proposed bylaws be referred to the Southeast Planning Review and Adjustment Committee for their views. That the notice of intention requirements of the Community Planning Act be fulfilled with respect to the proposed amendments, and sets the regular council meeting on October 15th, 2019 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers at the Town Hall, 31 Main Street, 2nd floor, Sackville, New Brunswick, as the date, time, and place for the public presentation of council's intent to amend the municipal plan bylaw and sets November 12th, 2019 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers at the Town Hall, 31 Main Street, second floor, Sackville, New Brunswick, as the date, time, and place for the public hearing of consideration of objections to the proposed bylaws.
Moved by Councillor Black, seconded by Councillor Tower. Questions? Debate? Councillor Evans.
I'm just going to repeat myself. I say this every time. We are starting the process. We will get public input. We will get information, further information from the staff. I'm happy to start the process.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. No other comments? Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Bickford. I have a couple of proclamations to make before we move on. I would note, first, it was about 7 years ago that the first Pride Parade took place here, and it was a combination with the P-Flag group. Now, 7 years later, we have a variety of groups involved, and it has taken on quite a life of its own here. And we now have partnerships with Sackville P-Flag, Mount Allison Student Unions, Catalyst Mount A, Sackville United Church, and many, many others are all involved in this year's Pride Parade. Would like to make an announcement, a proclamation. Whereas Sackville's two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, asexual, plus community is a vibrant and proud group within the Sackville community at large. And whereas the quadrumvirate that collaborates to make Sackville a positive, safe town for 2S LGBTQA plus persons, the town of Sackville, Mount Allison Students Union, Mount Allison University Catalyst Groups, and the Sackville Queer Room. And whereas the 2S LGBTQA plus community aims to establish positive educational forums to raise awareness and celebrate the diversity of our citizens. And whereas the 2S LGBTQA plus community recognizes a gay-straight alliance is imperative to the well-being of both societies, and whereas the 2S LGBTQA plus community encourages dialogue as a tool towards a tolerant and accepting society in the Sackville area. Therefore, I, John Hyam, Mayor of the Town of Sackville, hereby proclaim September 11th to 18th, 2019, Pride Week in Sackville, recognizing that everyone has the right to live in conditions of dignity, respect, and peace, regardless of sexual orientation and gender diversity. I have, Councillor Evans.
I just want to make a comment. I'll choose my words carefully. I am proud that I was a member of council when we did this for the first time. But I want to give credit to the mayor at the time, Bob Berry. The first one is the hardest one, and there was some pushback. We are much more inclusive society than we were before, and I want to give Mayor Bob credit for doing that because some of his constituents didn't think he was doing the right thing. This has become a normal part of what we do, and I'm proud that that's the case, but I want to give kudos to Bob for being the first.
I have a second proclamation at this time of the year. An average of 11 Canadian men die from prostate cancer every day. And we have consistently recognized this issue, and I would like to do so again. Whereas prostate cancer is the most common cancer among Canadian men, and whereas 1 in 7 Canadian men will be diagnosed with the disease, and whereas an estimated average of 11 Canadian men die from prostate cancer every day, and whereas the survival rate for prostate cancer is nearly 100% when detected early, but 3 of 4 will die when found late. And whereas Black men and those with a family history of the disease are at a greater risk, and whereas since Prostate Cancer Canada was formed in 1994, the death rate has been cut in half, and whereas awareness and conversations about prostate cancer can lead to screening and early detection that save lives, and whereas the town of Sackville supports Prostate Cancer Canada and everyone committed to raising awareness about prostate cancer, Therefore, I, Mayor John Hyam, on behalf of Sackville Town Council, do hereby proclaim September 2019 as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month in the town of Sackville. Thank you. Any comments? None? We will move to Mayor's report. Councilors, you have an outline of that. As usual, start with media. The Times and Transcripts, which we spoke about, the results of their analysis of their in-camera hours study, which was made public last week, about our role in that. Also, an expression of interest from a couple of Times and Transcript reporters that they want to get more involved here in Sackville. They feel there's a lot going on that they're not catching, and I welcomed them to come and suggested that we'd be happy to see them. This was, of course, returned from Mount Allison, so did the international students mixer, commencement, and the off-campus mixer, which Councillor Evans and myself made as well. In regard to a follow-up, there was two things I'd like to tell you about that intern who did the economic impact of education in the community. She did find some late-breaking data that she is adjusting her report. It only adds to the impact value. So when she finalizes the report, I'll be able to send you guys all a copy of that final report. She hasn't quite done it yet, but I did a video report with Mount Allison Communications as the method by which they give feedback to the people who provide the money for the internships. So I was pleased to do that, and was right behind 3 or 4 other people who were doing similar things. So an interesting way to give feedback, I thought. This Saturday was the Veterans Banners raising at the ice rink. We're now up to 86 out of, I think the total lamp posts that we can use is generally just thought of as 100. So we will be over that. We already are. Next year's orders are already meeting that total already.
Need more lamp posts.
Yeah. So it was, again, a wonderful event, celebration by families of family members that served in the service, and they will see them up on the streets of the town with a vision, a picture, and a story attached to it, which is freely available through the Legion and others about each and every one of those that have been done. As I noted at the time, and Mr. Zwicker noted, that other communities are asking to follow, get similar types of opportunities and similar types of designs. So very, very popular event now. Under community-supported education, the community coordinator process for selection is finished. I'm not sure where that sits. I did not participate in that, but I expect there'll be an announcement any moment in terms of the hiring of that position. But in addition, I went to Fredericton late last week with a couple of members of the Sackville Schools 2020, where Minister Dominic Cardy asked us to come up and speak to him about this topic. He's very interested, very excited, and invited the group to attend and present at the Education Summit in Fredericton in 2 weeks' time, as an example of somebody doing something about education in this province. So, very good meeting and a very interesting and candid exchange with the minister. I did drop into Armtech plant, for those who haven't. I met the 2 fellows who were there just to talk about what their business was going to be like. They confirmed that they are still under Armtech. The corporation bought them, but maintained that corporate name for an element of the larger corporation. So they are still known as Armtech out in this plant here. And they are a sales and distribution arm at this point for the larger corporation. And they do not immediately expect manufacturing to take place there again, but they're hopeful that perhaps that might happen. I did drop into the library after the engagement. You didn't make it. We were unable to participate directly, although I did get some feedback from people who did go. And the engagement session was about community views on public libraries and how they're being used, how they could be improved, what needs to happen in the future. And the feedback I got from the sessions was that it was very candid and very consistent, understaffed, under-resourced, needs to be open longer, can't close for lunches, you have to have it more. So a very consistent message for the province, but we shall see what they do with that. I won't speak about Camtran because I'm in the middle of discussions with them on a couple of items. The Minister of DTI, Transportation and Infrastructure, was invited to town by the MLA, and unfortunately I was out of town that day. But the staff took him on a tour of flooding protection and also of looking out at the dikes and seeing what our concerns were from the saltwater side. And I did follow up with a letter afterward thanking him for his interest and an opportunity for him to see what we were dealing with at this point here. Marilyn Trenham's been active on a couple of calls. She's been sending me a variety of topics, really just wanting to know where things are at in town and what things are moving. Nature Conservancy of Canada, you will recall that it was last spring that we had a presentation from the Nature Conservancy of Canada about the Western Hemisphere Shorebird Reserve designation and the request that we support the designation that is over in Dorchester now, get a similar one over on Cumberland County side, and it would also match up with some similar designations around Truro and Kentville for shorebird purposes. We received a letter this week that the international body has formally adopted the designation in these areas of the Bay of Fundy, and our area of foreshore in the bay in front of us is now a member of that shorebird, international shorebird conservation designation. So I think that's quite good. We got a lot of feedback from them about our particular letter and our activities in environmental matters. So they were quite pleased, and even noted that we met again at the Sandpiper Festival. So I think that was kind of cool. We did send we had a presentation here about the FCM conference, and the request was made that we send a letter, so we have done that. With the assistance of the Councillor Tower and Councillor Evans, we drafted a letter and sent that off, I believe. We sent it to all of you. Okay. A very interesting, again, we've talked many times about my discussions with CN, particularly at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and some other forums. And the CN has committed that Sackville is now to be a recipient of the Legacy Forest program that they have. And next week, we will have a formal press announcement here in town that they will be buying, on our behalf, 100 trees that we will be planting in fall and probably in spring, because that's a lot of planting. But the press release will be done, the press announcement will be done in conjunction and around Fall Fair. So that's a significant gift, and very much appreciate CN including us in this celebration of their 100 years. That's the purpose of their tree program. And just Enterprise Place, there's been a couple of contacts with the new owner of that facility, and a couple of individuals indicating that there are now a variety of plans afoot for the upstairs of that. So stay tuned. They're working out some details of a couple of initiatives, some private business and some nonprofits are underway, and we hope to be able to announce that next month. So that's it for my mayor's report. Any comments, questions? Councillor Michaud?
Just where CN has stepped up with 100 trees, I'm hoping that will continue, considering we cleaned up and taxpayers cleaned up a fair bit of their mess at their property. So hopefully that type of gift will continue, or other things will come to be based on the fact of what taxpayers have put forward to clean up their mess. So.
I think it's important that when I discuss things, that is one of the items I always raise, and this is certainly part of their response. Okay, any other questions on the report? Okay. Thank you. CAO report, please.
Thank you, Worship. I guess my report's on page 25 in the package, and again, another busy month this past 30 days. And first thing I noted, I guess, is the number of events that we did hold over the summer, particularly the Chalk Festival and also the annual Corn Boil to welcome students back. And I think there was some good discussion around the events, and we heard some concerns expressed, but I also know the staff received a lot of positive comments for the events that are held too. And so staff will look to make sure the council has that information and in your deliberations and setting your budget, and it's certainly up to council to decide what you want to do in terms of events in the town, and staff look to implement the various initiatives that are identified and funded to whatever level the council supports. So VIC seemed to have another busy month, and year-to-date numbers seem to be up over last year. So you know, again, that's just counting numbers, as Councillor Evans has said, but hopefully it's translated into greater visitations within the community as well, and people spending more time here in Sackville. There's also lots of projects underway by the Public Works Facilities Department, and I think a lot of details in those reports, so I'll leave that to you know, that specific report. Finance, as we know, and has been alluded to, the budget 2020 is underway in terms of meeting schedules, and so that'll be undertaken and rolled out in the next couple of months. And there's been lots of discussion as well administratively around our review of bylaws, particularly the council procedures bylaw, code of ethics as well, and so there's lots of discussion will come forward in the next few months as council works with senior management around reviewing and making whatever revisions are seen as being appropriate in terms of doing your business to be in compliant with the legislation and our bylaws, and in an effort to ensure the public is informed and kept up to date as best as possible as we proceed with spending their taxpayers' dollars. At the time I noted emergency services were very active, and I was specifically referencing the fire department, and that's certainly so, but I think they had lots of support from other departments this past weekend, and I know many of our staff, management, and frontline people were on deck and dealing with the most recent event, and I think for the most part, while there's been some inconveniences along the way, I think there were a number of things that quite pleased to hear the staff in terms of how they handled the events and tried to keep the services provided to our residents as best as possible. So with that, Your Worship, there's a few motions in there, but they'll come up, and some of them have already, so I'll leave it at that unless there's any questions that council has.
Hearing none, I think it may be useful to perhaps ask Mr. Acton to give a bit of a summary of some of the preparation that took place in terms of the anticipation of the post-tropical storm. When people noted the abattoir being cleared out and a few other things, maybe it'd be useful if you have a couple of points just to make on that.
Sure, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, as far as the storm goes, I'll talk about before the storm. Obviously, Public Works was making sure the catch basins were cleared, the street sweeper was out. Any areas that typically get jammed up with water, we made sure it was at least free of debris. I did make a call early last week, I guess it would be, to DTI in anticipation of this. They had promised that they might be able to do some ditching and free up the Abido. And graciously, they were able to accommodate our requests in digging out the Abido behind Armtech, which was significantly silted in over the summer months with the lack of water, especially over the July and August timeframe. The amount of silt that's deposited on the Fundy side is substantial. There was 3 to 4 feet of silt that was able to be cleared out of the mouth of that Abido, which greatly helped a couple things. One, obviously, people noticed the pond hadn't dropped to its nominal level. That quickly dropped to its nominal level prior to the storm coming. And obviously it helped during the storm as well. DTI also indicated they were going to re-ditch and clean out the ditch from the Abido to Crescent Street. By the time the end of day Friday came around, they were about halfway, so they had at least got half of it done, and I see they were completing that today. So that, again, was a big help, and we appreciate DTI jumping on that and being able to help us out. I do think it did make some differences. And then in regards to the storm, I mean, obviously the retention pond, again, a second storm in less than 2 weeks, did very well, and no flooding whatsoever virtually throughout the entire town. There were some isolated periodic floodings in front of the heating plant, booster pump because of the capacity of the water at certain times, but quickly dissipated. Obviously trees down and power outage was our main concern, and because power outages, staff spent a lot of time dealing with lift stations. Some lift stations have backup generators, but a lot of them don't, so we were pumping them out, making sure that they didn't back up to people's houses. And overall, we fared out fairly well, and I thank the staff for the time and effort they put in over the all-day Saturday night through to Sunday morning, and we finished, I think last night we were able to get our last lift station up and running at about 11 o'clock last night, so that's kind of a...
Thank you. Councilor Michaud, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, kudos to your group of workers in making that happen. You know, there's a big mess in our community, and things came back to normal as normal can be, I guess. A lot of things beyond your control, but I just want to say thanks for your crew and taking that on. Where we're talking about the DTI and the work, and I guess I should have brought it up maybe under the mayor's report, but with the minister being here recently, has there been any indication from DTI in regards to that Abido by Armtech where they've kind of done the ditching there? Is that on, is there a timeline that they have given or shown any indication when that Abido would be replaced at Armtech or in that area?
As far as that Abido goes, there's been some discussion with DTI to try to get a Abido, but they're not looking at, if they're going to replace any Abidos, they did indicate that wouldn't be the Abido that they would replace. There's other locations that would make more sense. As everyone is aware, and we've been discussing for many years, I guess I'll call it the old river that used to come in where they used to build ships is silting in, and again, I mentioned the amount of silt that was there. It's not the right location for an Abido. We've been saying that for many years since we started this Lawrence Street project, but they, I think they're definitely aware that there needs to be an Abido, there needs to be work on their Abidos, a new Abido. Where it's going to go, they've not indicated. They indicated that they will be looking at this study that's going on and to try to determine, maybe the best location that an Abido could go. There's no funding, they said, so right now they've not indicated that they're even going to put a new Abido or where it would be. All that we've been doing staff-wise and myself has been pushing them to let them know that the Abido they have is not working properly. It's undersized. The Abido by the Crescent Street lagoons out behind Public Works is 18 inches by 18 inches. It's undersized. it's not at the right elevation, and we need their assistance to try to do something to alleviate the freshwater flooding in the Lawrence Street area. So we're going to continue to pressure them. The minister, staff met with them, and we've tried to drive that point home in hopes that he understands the need and necessity for us to get a new abattoir somewhere in and around the area down there to alleviate this major threat of freshwater flooding.
Councilor Michaud?
I guess where staff are doing their things in engaging DTI, I'm wondering if it would be prudent for the council to send something in written form to the minister indicating that these abattoirs be a priority in their funding and helping with what's already been completed by the municipality, and through, maybe it needs to be called out in another manner besides staff trying to leverage their relationship. I'm just kind of wondering if it could be taken another step further.
I think the timing would be good. Two things. One, this took place before you arrived, Councilor Michaud, but in response to an allegation about our engineers, I arranged immediately to meet with the deputy minister, and she brought four of her top staff to the meeting, and we discussed all of the flooding questions and indicated what the long-term plans were, where we wanted to go, what the short-term plans were, and asked them what roles they could play. And basically, similar to what Mr. Acton just said, in terms of that abattoir, they said, we'll help you dig it out, but we're never replacing that one. And they understood that the preference was them to identify it where they wanted to do it. So we do have, both at a practical level, we've got a pretty clear understanding of what DTI's position is. And I think you're right that after the minister's presentation here, it would be really good to make a stronger political case. So I'll take it to draft a letter and send it around for people to look at. So it'll go from the mayor to the DTI, following up on the topics that we had, because we did do a follow-up thanking him for coming. Now we can do a follow-up and thank him for acting. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Councillor Evans, please.
Yeah, kudos to staff for their work this weekend, too. I am a self-appointed retention pond monitor. I patrol that area regularly, take a lot of photographs, and I guess it's about 12 days ago, we had 121 millimeters of rain, which is a major rain event, and we had no flooding on Lawrence Street. I think the actual amount of precipitation was not measured. The Government of Canada website has no information for our recent event. My hunch is the wind broke their equipment. But I was one of the fortunate ones. I did not lose power, so I was sitting indoors on my computer, and I got several messages from people who used to live in town asking how we were and how about that flooding on Lawrence Street. And I was so pleased to be able to say we didn't have any flooding on Lawrence Street. And one person who used to live here and was visiting this summer and who was toured around the retention pond sent me a text. And the quote was, "What a brilliant investment." So I just thought I'd share that with staff and the rest of you who agreed to pay for it.
Any other comments? Councilor, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just as a point of information, the informal rain gauge on my deck said we got about 75 to 80 millimeters of rain on that in the tropical storm.
Yep. Okay, so we are now at Finance. Councilor Tower, is it you?
Part one.
Part one.
The bills and payroll, the information is on page 26 and 27, and I'd like to ask the treasurer if he has any comments to fill in some of the numbers.
Thank you, Councillor Tower, Your Worship. So the accounts payable report on page 26. General government is higher in the month of August than normal. The big reason there is there was a check written out of general government to our gas tax reserve for $414,000. That check came in with other payments. It's required to go directly into our gas tax reserve, but because it came in with other payments, we had to deposit it into our general fund and then write the check back to the reserve until the expenses are undertaken. Once the expenses are undertaken, then the money gets paid out of the reserve fund back into the operating fund in order to cover those expenses. The reason being is that the gas tax reserve must earn its own interest, and any interest that comes to the gas tax reserve must be used towards eligible gas tax projects. So that's why that was done. In addition to that, patching, paving were the other large items in general government. Utility government monthly payment to Veolia, maintenance on our systems and power bills. General capital consisted of Lawrence Street Phase 2, University Avenue, and some fire equipment that was purchased, and utility capital consisted of the trunk sewer and University Avenue. Page 27, we had 2 pays for the month. It is listed there in addition to the overtime, and the reason for it is listed within the report. So if there's any questions, I can answer them. Otherwise, I'll turn it back over to Councillor Tower.
Councillor Tower?
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council accept the bills and payroll for the month of August 2019 as follows. General government, $1,077,648.87. General capital, $174,418.41. Utility government, $36,377.13. Utility capital, $11,668.42, and salaries, $245,817.73.
Moved by Councillor Tower, seconded by Deputy Mayor Aiken. Question?
Question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Deputy Mayor Aiken?
Thank you, Worship. The financial and administration report appears on page 28 of the package, and I'll present a summary of it here. Financial statements are included to the end of August 2019. We're now 2/3 of the way through the year and continue to be on overall targets for operational and capital budgets at this point. The schedule for 2020 operating and capital budget meetings has been provided in the report. We've been advised we've been selected to undertake a random audit by the province on our gas tax funding. Odd use of the word random, but the audit covers the 2018 year, and the information requested has been sent off for review on Friday, September 6th. Water bills for the period of April 1st to June 30th went out on July 10th and had a due date of August 12th. We have sent out a reminder to all those who have not paid their bills. As of September 3rd, we have collected $54,533.72 of $69,299.26, which is 78.7%, for the 130 water and sewer accounts that were issued shut-off notices in June 2019. No accounts have been disconnected at this time. Under Lawrence Street Phase 2, we've submitted claim number 5 to the CWWF program and received in late August in the amount, received payment in late August in the amount of $791,076. This will bring the total claimed under this program to $1,636,120 of the total eligible funding of $2,175,291. More claims are going to be submitted as holdbacks are released and more invoices are received. Finance gathered information relating to council remuneration from other municipalities in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, which have been requested by council. An update was provided at the September discussion group for council's review. Resolutions were presented and approved by council that have been sent off to UMNB for the upcoming conference in the first weekend in October. Summer bylaw students continue to work and be very active in patrolling our parks, monitoring 2-hour and illegal parking, as well as responding to other complaints. The students are nearing the completion of their terms and will continue to be employed until September 22nd, 2019, which is the conclusion of our fall fair weekend. Finance had a summer student working in the administration office, and her term was completed on August 30th. We'd like to thank Julia Cavalier for her commitment and good work during the summer and wish her all the best in her future education. And finally, the bylaw enforcement and animal control statistics for August are attached to this report. And there any questions, I can direct them to the treasurer. There are no motions.
Questions on the report? Councilor Michaud, please.
Thank you, Worship. My question is regarding the capital budget and the spreadsheet here, and as the cooler weather is now upon us, I'm just seeing some noted amounts here still at 100%, and I'm just kind of wondering where we are in regards to some of those projects, like under Parks and Recreation facility upgrades, they're still about 89% available. Town beautification, 100% available. Trail development, 100% available. Stevens Drive, cul-de-sac, 100% available. Sidewalk renewal, 100% available, and retaining wall, Main Street and Wright, 100% available. So I'm just kind of wondering if there's work in progress, we just haven't seen the bills on those yet, or are those going to be tackled this year? Just maybe an update on those.
Thank you, Councillor Michaud. I'll start, and then I may turn it over to our engineer to comment as well. Your first couple, which talk about facility upgrades, that is money we began budgeting 2 years ago as a result of unexpected capital upgrades that were happening throughout the year. For example, when the pump went in this building, and we needed to spend over $10,000 to repair that. So at this point in time, that is still at 88% available. And as we get closer to November, October, November, if that money is not being spent, then we will look at other upgrades. But we don't want to push that fund and then have a surprise happen with something at the rink, something at Town Hall, something at the Public Works garage, etc. So that one. The others, I guess I'll turn over to Dwayne, and he can speak on the beautification, where he's at for sidewalk renewal and the Stevens Drive cul-de-sac and the retaining wall.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, in regards to, I believe you were talking new trail development. That again was going to be part of the Lund property. I think we talked about that a little bit. So there's be some funds of that are going to be needed for that overall project. So there'll be some of that, plus the waterfowl park, a few improvements there that will be looked at. With respect to the beautification, I believe that's all spent. We purchased garbage cans, may not be allocated in the right. Okay, the invoice just came, I guess. So that the beautification, we purchased more 3-stream garbage cans. They have been received, so that will take care of those funds. Beach Hill Park, again, we're looking at that possible dog park, which council saw the survey results and some information there. So that money is going to be allocated for that if that transpires. Cul-de-sac, Stevens Drive, we are still planning to do that. That's being done by our Public Works staff, and we're hoping to do that after we finish the university project. So it'll be a fall project for us. It is our intention to do that as well. The sidewalk renewal project, again, we're just getting geared up. We're waiting for Monarch to come in and do the curb and gutter on University Avenue. So we've got all the utilities in. We're quickly going to switch over to work on the sidewalk renewal on Wellington. So that'll take care of that sidewalk renewal money.
So, just in regards to, I guess you're talking about the 3-stream garbage bins. I see that there's already a line item for that, and so the beautification we spent additional monies there. Is that what the case? Because I see under engineering there's 3-stream garbage bins, 50,000, and then the beautification under recreation parks was another 15. So was it all for?
I was speaking of the would be the one. I didn't see the line item for the 3-stream for the garbage cans, which I believe was a capital item. Yes. I didn't mention the retaining wall, but maybe I forgot that one. But with respect to the retaining wall, we ran into a major obstacle on that project. One of the property owners that were going to be affected by that project isn't in agreement to the project, so wasn't willing to allow us to do the modifications to put the sidewalk and move the water main. There's a water main that's literally in the bank. We were having to lower that water main. In order to do that, we were going to have to dig back onto private property because of the slope of the bank in order to physically lower that water main. I had discussions with both property owners there, and one property owner has given us full permission to do it, but the other property owner was not willing to do that. So I've got to look at an alternative way of trying to do it if I can't get the cooperation of the property owner, and so I'm still trying to deal with that. The project will not go ahead this year because of that. There's no time, and I have no way of being able to do it where he's not in agreement to it, so I'm working on that.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Finney, please.
Dwayne, the guy who's not in agreement, can we expropriate that land because of safety reasons?
We can definitely look at it. You know, I was hoping not to go down that road, and in our discussions that we've had with them, it just kind of come to a roadblock. So we are looking at various options, what options we have, and likely once we determine what options are available, I'll have to bring that back to council, and if we're still in agreement, maybe a potential project for 2020, once we iron out all these details and figure out how we're going to be able to do it. So yes, we're looking at all various options.
Any other comments or questions on the report? Hearing none. There was no motion, was there? Okay, so we move to tourism, business development. Councillor Tower, is that you?
Thank you, Your Worship. The information is on page 37 and 38. As mentioned earlier, the visitors numbers are up in August and overall again for the year. I haven't got the exact number where we are for the year, but maybe Mr. Spurls can come up with that number next month, whatever, for where we are. The Waterfowl Park performing artist in residence, Leah Wilton, completed her summer project with a successful presentation on August 2nd at the Waterfowl Park of her dance piece, Heart of Home. A reception was held following the performance at the Visitors Information Center. The manager and senior manager of corporate projects met with 2 local business owners in August to discuss tourism and business development ideas. Several more one-on-one meetings will be coming up in September and October, and we encourage anyone interested in speaking to this dynamic duo, please contact the manager. And Mr. Sproles, can you give it more background on that, please?
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Tower, Your Worship, Councillors. This is an idea that we've been kicking around for a long time. We always try to get out and talk to as many local businesses as we can. So we put out a direct appeal for people, just reminding them that we would like to see them and giving them the opportunity to let us know. We also don't want to pester people. So we've gotten a good response. We must have had, I think we've had 10 or 12 people respond to us, as well as the 2 in August. We met with 2 people in July. So they're informal meetings. We sit down. They've lasted, I guess, about an hour. And we chat about what we're doing, and they chat about what they're doing and their ideas and concerns. And we have probably 6 or 7 of them lined up in the next month or so. All of this is going to lead to kind of a more detailed strategic upgrade of our tourism strategic plan, which will be finished by the end of the year, and we'll be having some larger public meetings in October. Jamie and I, as I say, are really enjoying these meetings, and we really hope that more people will contact us, and we're always open to meeting with people and discussing ideas. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Staff met with Main Street redevelopment in August to discuss several ideas, including potential development of the Sackville chapter of the Moncton Chamber of Commerce, parking signs, street closures, looking for more interaction. Was there any surprising feedback on that? From that?
From the meeting with Main Street Redevelopment? I might, there was nothing that I was really surprised by, but I don't know if Jamie wanted to mention anything about perhaps the street closure ideas?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Tower. I guess one of the things that we noted earlier as part of the question period, one of the things that we're always trying to do are, generate activity and new events and excitement and vibrancy, especially during the summer months. So the city of Dieppe recently experimented with a street closure program on Gauvin Road outside of their market. And it's been very successful, kind of self-programming with some larger than life games that the city partnered with a variety of external groups on. And I guess we brought this to Ms. Wicker's attention, who's the part-time employee with Main Street Redevelopment, and she did a site visit, so we were just kind of kicking around some ideas of, is that something that may work in our own community? Could it be a pilot project? Obviously, street closures require a decision of council, so just literally an idea, and it's something that she was going to raise with her executive, and then we'd have a further discussion.
Thank you for that. We've reached out to a variety of Sackville businesses on the impact of Sappy Fest on them, and all those who responded said it had a positive impact, but they continue to gather information so that we can improve the festival down the road. The Waterfowl Park artist in residence, Andrew Wilson, will present a quilting bee workshop on Saturday, or did, pardon me, I'll correct that. Ahead of my time, I guess. At the Visitors Information Center, and Andrew's work was on display for the people to enjoy, and from what I hear, that went over very well.
Thank you, Mike. Andrew actually had an earlier workshop in the summer, but which is the one that I imagine you've heard of. This one, unfortunately, on September the 7th, there was a large storm you also may heard of. Yes, it was planned to be in the morning, but we decided that people would be busy running around preparing for the storm. So it's actually been moved to Sunday, September the 15th from 2 to 5 p.m. So they must have been talking about the earlier one that was quite successful, yeah. But the information also has all been updated on the website and everywhere else, just not in my report, I apologize.
Very good. Our fall staff, Nell Lloyd and Margaret Hancock, have started work, and we welcome them to the Vic Center. And we also are pleased to receive funding from the Mount Allison's Experimental Learning Program to hire a student for the weekends in the fall at the Visitors Information Center. The students will also assist in other planning and business developments. And how many weeks will he be on?
Thank you, Councillor. We don't have the exact start date because the deadline was just today. So, but I believe they will be starting next week, and it will go until the very end of the academic term. So it's about 10 weeks, I believe. Yep.
And that is my report.
Any questions on the report? Hearing none, you have no motions. We'll move on to item E, Public Property and Facilities. Councillor Evans.
The Public Works Department continued working on the reconstruction project for University Avenue during the month of August. Currently have all the utilities installed and the road construction almost complete. The curb and gutter is scheduled to be installed later this week, with asphalt and landscaping to be completed over the next several weeks. Engineering and Public Works students have completed their summer work term. We'd like to thank all the students for their great work throughout the summer and wish them the best in their upcoming school years. The Engineering Department had worked on the approved capital budget project for the trunk sewer replacement between Squire Street and Star Avenue throughout the months of July and August, and with the addition of gas tax funding approved by Council in July, the tender 2019-10 sanitary trunk sewer replacement from Squire Street to Star Avenue was issued on August 7th. During the tender closing on August 26th, 5 bids were received. Bowser's Construction Limited, $286,062 HST included. Modern construction, $337,633. Birch Hill Construction, $387,345.30. Dexter Construction, $377,970.50. And Beal and Inch Limited, $342,234.25. All of these HST included. A motion recommending that the lowest bid from Bowser Construction of Sackville, New Brunswick will be coming forward during tonight's meeting. Engineering Department had updated a 5-year designated highway funding plan during the month of August. Due to a lack of funding in 2019, that's funding from the province for their highway, we are looking to resubmit the previous 5-year plan for 2020 through 2024. The details of the 5-year plan are attached. A motion will be coming forward during this regular council meeting. And I have a question for the engineer about this. When this was presented to us a year ago, your department had prioritized the roads, and Queens Road was at the top of the list because it's in bad shape. Council decided to make the road at exit 506 a priority. And so my question is, in light of the fact that we have done or are going to do the town portion of this project, what would you recommend to us be the #1 street that needs to get repaired? I don't want you to tell us what to do. I want you to know what your recommendation is, where the work needs to be done.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Yeah, so maybe just to talk a little bit about the two different projects, because as Councillor Everett indicated, back in 2019, I had put forth the next section, phase 1 of the Queens Road. And at that time, council decided to switch exit 506 from year 5 up to year 1 and bump everything down by a year. So I guess as a result of that, I looked at the 2020 to 2024 and left the plan as status quo. Again, the two projects are a bit probably a bit different in the respect that council may look at exit 506 as maybe more looking at bringing development in. There was some curb and gutter, some alignment things that were going to be done there. There was going to be some exits to various businesses, kind of defined a little bit better. Robson Avenue was going to be defined a little bit better, storm system and various parts of that. So council obviously saw a reason to switch that. However, the Queens Road, in my opinion, is in bad shape. Everyone travels Queens Road on a daily basis. It also is important to be renewed, and was the reason why I had it at #1 in 2019. I've had many comments from both residents of the town of Sackville, as well as residents from other parts of Canada who expressed their concerns about the shape Queens Road is in. So again, from a infrastructure standpoint, that road is in worse shape than the exit 506. And again, council may have a different kind of agenda as to why they wanted to do that at the time. We are doing a section of exit 506, the sidewalk, which takes the curb and gutter and sidewalk out towards the Ultramar and the corner of Bridge and Cattail Ridge. So there is a bunch of work that is going to be done this fall. My recommendation, I guess, if we're looking at, and a lot of what I look at is from the infrastructure standpoint, it would be Queens Road. Again, the infrastructure is, out of all the streets in town, we've had the most water main breaks on Queens Road out of all the other ones over the last, say, 10 years. And everyone drives over it and knows the condition that it's in. Both water and sewer needs to be renewed. Road itself needs to be renewed. So that would be, if council was considering any changes, that would definitely be a change that would be welcomed from the engineer.
Because we voted unanimously to make the change, and I know what was behind my vote was the sidewalks, the curbs, the roads and stuff. That's why I was sympathetic to that change. The quality of the road is not, Queens Road is really bad, and so I put that out there that we could, you're presenting this to us because this is what we approved last year. and I appreciate that, but I would like to be guided too by the fact that staff are recommending that we fix the really bad stuff first. I really like the algorithm you use to determine which streets get repaired. Now, in this case, it's a provincial highway. We're limited to those things, but I will leave it at that. The Tantramar Veterans Memorial Civic Center, it's playing host to the Legion banner unveiling. Did that September 7th, was referred to. There will be a wedding reception on September 14th. Welcome back to the Mount Allison Mounties women's hockey team for another season. Mounties start with exhibition play on September 20th at 6:30, and the Mounties are hosting a hockey school from September 10th to the 13th. In terms of the municipal parks, staff assisted in several special events in August, such as New Brunswick Day, Sappy Fest, the Triathlon, Chalk Festival, Roller Disco, and the Student Corn Boil. Work on the Rotary Bridge in Dan's Way have been progressing, with most of the work scheduled to be finished in early October, weather permitting. Water sampling at Lewis Fawcett Park concluded the end of August, and I believe we had no positive tests, so even though it was really dry up until it got really wet, the quality of the water was really good, he said, using really 3 times in one sentence. Public washrooms will remain open at Bill Johnstone Park, Lewis Fawcett Park for the month of September. There are other public washrooms during business hours, which include the library, the Civic Center, the Visitor Information Center, Town Hall, as well as portable toilets at the Waterfowl Park and Beach Hill Park.
Any questions on the report?
I have a couple.
Councillor Finney, please.
Just one quick question, and I don't know if I missed it or not, but the thing is, the remaining paving that needs to be done down by the hospital, when's that supposed to be scheduled?
They were supposed to be here today, and when I called, they are coming on Wednesday, so they'll be here on Wednesday to finish that up, yes? Yep.
Councillor Tarr?
Thank you, Worship. It's more of a comment. I like the way it's laid out, that we are still focusing on 106 up. One reason is that this provincial government is cut back because they don't have the funds. And if we give them a larger project, then we know they'll probably cut back a second time and maybe give it to other people because ours is too high. So I think coming in at this level is good, you know, because you had a light one for us, a heavy, a light and a heavy. Well, I guess the town will reap the reward that we end up with next to nothing, but then a light one the next. So I like the way you laid it back in again. As much as Queens Road might need it, I don't think the province would have anything to do with it, personally.
So you're commenting on what the motion is yet to come? Are you commenting on the report, or? Okay.
Thank you, Worship. I had recently had a discussion with a resident on St. James Street who wanted me to pass on compliments to you and to Michelle. He said you were very professional and wonderful to deal with. So, and this is someone who I can attest is not easily pleased. So.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Evans, you have a motion?
I move that council award tender number 2019-10 sanitary trunk sewer replacement Squire Street to Star Avenue to the lowest bidder, Bowser's Construction Limited, in the amount of $286,062.50, HST included.
Moved by Councillor Evans, seconded by Councillor Finney. Councillor Michaud, please.
Thank you, Worship. My question is in regards to what the budgeted amount was for this project, and I believe it's a portion. I believe it was $125,000 is coming out of the gas tax funding. I just wanted to get an understanding of where this came in budget-wise.
Thank you, Councillor Michaud. Yeah, the combined budget for what was originally awarded under the capital budget for the replacement and adding the gas tax comes to a total of 303, so $303,500 is the budget for the project, and obviously we're under budget by 18-ish thousand. Right. Yeah.
Thank you. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Councilor Evans.
Council accept the 5-year capital plan for designated highways as presented within the public property report and authorize that it be submitted to the Department of Transport and Infrastructure.
Moved by Councilor Evans, seconded by Councilor Tower. Councilor Michaud, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess as we've started the discussion around this, I don't disagree. There might be areas in town that require maybe work prior than exit 106. However, I think this leads us to, or exit 506. But this leads us to, I think, a discussion we need to have is the fact that where is the province headed in regards to this type of funding? I know we've got a UMMB motion coming forward, but I would like us to pay heed to this type of thing in our budget deliberations, and the fact that we might have to start biting the bullet in regards to actually providing more funding towards these type of projects, and stop waiting on the province to hold up their end of the bargain.
Any other comment on the resolution? Question. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And we now go to Recreation. Councillor O'Neill, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Reports on page 42 and 43. Summer programs are now wrapped up, and we were able to offer 22 programs this past summer, which were mostly all weekly. As well, there were 7 larger scale events, and we reached well over 3,500 participants. So it sounds like the town was really busy. It was, I think, very exciting, successful summer. The Summer Adult Ultimate Frisbee program has continued to grow in numbers, and they're going to be offering the program again in the fall. The Sackville Street Chalk Art Festival took place. Hundreds of people came out to enjoy the live music, workshops, and it was really amazing the kind of work that these people do. The coordinator, Street Chalk coordinator, asked for feedback from the various artists and musicians. The feedback was mostly exclusively positive. The roller disco brought approximately 175 skaters to the Civic Center, making it another successful event. Community development grant applications are now available. The deadline for community groups to apply is October the 15th, and you do so by going on the web, www.sackville.com. Sackville Pride Week, as we've heard, will take place September the 11th to the 18th. The parade will take place at 5:30 on September the 12th, starting outside the Mount Allison Chapel, before concluding with the flag raising here at Town Hall. Live music and a charity barbecue will be available in Bill Johnson Memorial Park following the flag raising. The 19th Annual Fall Fair will be held the week of September the 18th to the 22nd. This year will include a live comedy act from Marshall Button as Lucien. Lucien?
Lucien.
Okay, thank you. As well as a music jamboree, family day at the Doncaster Farm, fall fair parade, fireworks, show and shine, music in the tent, a midway, and much more. A full schedule is now available again at www.sackville.com/fallfair. The Sackville Arts Wall will include Ernie Sears on Sunday, October the 27th. More details about that event will be promoted as they become available. With the library report, the summer programs are another success. The library summer students worked very well with the town students to collaborate on many programs. The library students ran and/or assisted with 137 children programs with a total, which I find almost unbelievable, of 2,240 participants. I think that's pretty awesome. The Summer Reading Club ended with 137 members who also altogether read 2,155 books. The closing party for the members, their family and friends was held on August 29th. The library is in the process of hiring and training new casual workers to replace the head librarian during vacation or sick times and to help with programming. And that's the report for the recreation and library.
Questions on the report? Councillor Evans, please.
I just have a comment. At my own expense, I brought in a consultant from Ottawa to evaluate the Street Chalk Festival, and my 2-year-old granddaughter gave it both thumbs up. It was fascinating. We sat for longer than I think she would sit listening to the music, and it was windy and a little drizzly at times, and that didn't bother her, and she had a great time, and some of that artwork that soon got washed away was done by her, so congratulations on a job well done.
Any other comments on the report? Hearing none, there's no motions. We'll move to public safety. Councillor Butcher.
Thank you. I'll be doing the fire and EMO portion of this. This report can be found on page 44. We met on August 28th, and at that time, Sackville Fire and Rescue had responded to 19 calls for service in the month of August. There was 9 commercial fire alarms, 1 residential fire alarm, 5 motor vehicle calls, 3 mutual aid calls, including 1 structure fire with the Amherst Fire Department, and 1 lift assist with Ambulance NB. Sackville Fire Department is currently at 100 calls as of the end of August, and the total number of calls for service to date in 2019 is compared down from last year at this time. Whoa, my computer just lost the page. Hold on here. Crazy. There we go. Training sessions that took place in the month of August were ATV rescue training, AirPack and RIT training. Department members also toured the New Windsor Hall and Barclay buildings at Mount A, and the members conducted station and equipment checks to ensure that all equipment remains in a state of readiness. They also, all the members, department members also conducted fire extinguisher training with the Dons and RAs at Mount Allison, and they assisted with the triathlon at Silver Lake. Reminder, we have our 14th annual truck draw tickets out and around the business community. Remember to pick up your tickets from any of our firefighters' tickets and make use of the coupons that are attached. Just a reminder that rubbish fires are strictly prohibited within town limits. And if you want to have a fire outside, they must be in an outdoor wood burning appliance. And as always, and especially on the tail end of Hurricane Dorian, it's a good reminder that we should all have a basic emergency kit prepared to last 72 hours. Luckily, I don't think any of us were without power for 72 hours, but still without power, that's true. Better be prepared, right? So there should be 2 liters of water per person per day, food that won't spoil, like canned food and energy bars. Remember to replace those once a year, and don't forget your manual can opener and a flashlight and batteries and a first aid kit. Although it wasn't in it at the time this report was made, I did speak with Deputy Chief Green, and even with Hurricane Dorian, we had very few calls for need, mostly in the way of fallen trees, and everyone in our community is safe. And that's my report.
Any comments on the report? Councillor Evans, please.
Just a comment. While I'm delighted to see Deputy Chief Green here, I want to call attention to the fact that the chief is not here. He's under the weather, and I just want him to know that I, and I'm sure my colleagues, wish him the best.
Thank you. Councillor Finney.
Add to that, as a matter of fact. I wanted to add to that, I was up to visit last night, as a matter of fact, and he's resting well, and but it's still hard to get him to turn around and slow down. So I said to his wife, tell him to smarten up and just take it easy and take your time before you decide to come back. So.
Thanks for that. Any other comments on the EMO portion of the report? No. We move to the second part. RCMP.
That's me, thank you. Thank you. With the police report, August was a busy month with better than average calls for service, and 152 files were opened. False alarms are still higher than the normal, with 15 such calls this past month. An area that is still being monitored is the Mental Health Act calls for service. Again, there were 3 such calls in August. There were several property crimes, 2 break, enter, and thefts in town, 1 with being solved and 2 people charged. The 2 charged individuals were new to the community and known to police. The other break-ins is still under investigation. As reported in the last report, Sappy Fest, from a policing perspective, this community event was successful in that there were no increase in calls all weekend. On the traffic side of their duties, there were several tickets written in the community this past month. Because of the numerous speeding complaints, they put a focus on that area, and roughly a third of the tickets were for speeding and another third related to expired registrations. There were also foot patrols conducted, as well as check stops and educational traffic initiatives. And that's the report, Your Worship.
Questions on the RCMP portion? Hearing none. Thank you very much, Councillor O'Neill. We move to policy bylaw. Councillor Butcher again, please.
Thank you. So the monthly report for the policy and bylaw liaison. Bylaw number 268, a bylaw respecting the bonding of officers and employees, received 3rd and final reading last month at the regular council meeting. Also, bylaw number 244H, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 244, Town of Sackville zoning bylaw, received 3rd and final reading at last month's regular council meeting as well. The town's present and proposed dangerous and unsightly premises bylaw has been forwarded to legal for their review to ensure that we have covered everything and that it's accurate under legislation. So this bylaw will be brought forward to the September policy and bylaw liaison meeting. And Lori Bickford will be bringing bylaw number 194, the subdivision bylaw, to our September policy and bylaw liaison meeting as well. I look forward to that. And research and review on bylaw number 251, a bylaw respecting the procedure and organizations of council, is still ongoing, and it will be brought forward to the September policy and bylaw liaison meeting as well. And the clerk's office attended one tender opening on August 26th, tender number 2019-10, the sanitary trunk sewer replacement from Squire Street to Star Street. And the tender opening report was presented at the special meeting of council last week, and it can be viewed on the town's website. And that's my report.
Comments on the report? There's a lot coming to the next September meeting, by the sound of things. Good luck with that. No other comments? We move to personnel. Councillor Black.
Thank you. The personnel report can be found on page 49 of the package. The council liaison meeting was held on September 5th, 2019. As of the end of August, there were 37 permanent employees, 1 temporary employee, and 32 summer students. 2 grievances are currently being addressed, one on call-out provisions and one with regard to statutory pay. All departments have been very busy on a number of fronts in the various departments throughout the town. We wish to thank the students for the great job they did over the summer in their various capacities, and it should be noted that 32 summer students and 37 permanent employees, that's a pretty high number considering we hired that many students comparable to our permanent employees in town. The town recently received a letter of resignation from our Public Works Manager, Superintendent Todd Hicks, effective September 16th, 2019. Todd has been with the town almost 3 years. However, in his short time with us, he has demonstrated significant dedication and commitment to the town in his direction of the Public Works personnel on various municipal projects. His expertise and calm demeanor in working with people will certainly be missed. We wish Todd well in his new endeavors. That's the report.
Comments on the report? Questions? Councillor Evans, please.
2 things. I found out that you have to accept resignation letters even if you don't want to. I had the good fortune of being the liaison counselor with Public Works, and it was a treat to work with Todd, and I'm going to miss him.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Hearing no other comments, we move to item J, Corporate Affairs and Strategic Development. Councillor Michaud, please.
Thank you, Worship. The report appears on pages 50 to 52, and the dog park survey results follow that. I'll just touch on a few highlights. The Corporate Affairs and Strategic Development Liaison Group met on August the 28th. Following the Chamber of Commerce of Greater Moncton's presentation on the 19th of June to explore the potential to create a Sackville chapter, the town was pleased to partner with the Chamber for a business after hours event on August 14th. The event provided another opportunity to explore a Chamber's presence in Sackville. Approximately 30 people attended. Now registration is open for Sackville businesses, and interested owner-operators should contact the Chamber of Commerce of Greater Moncton directly. And I believe that will be also, the municipality will be publishing some information as well on our website, how to reach them and register. In regards to our marketing, as noted over the last few months, staff have been working on a new marketing and communication plan. Our strategic plan identifies communication and marketing as one of the strategic directions for the municipality, and in doing so, recommended that the town develop a marketing and communication plan. This plan will be developed in two parts. Communication piece of the plan will be developed internally, while the external expertise will be required for the marketing portion. In regards to the communication plan, it will largely be a checklist and summary of the tools that the municipality uses, such as website, social media, YouTube, papers, and TV. And when the town should use them to help deliver corporate messages, mainly regarding operational items such as closures, meetings, events, emergencies. Also, staff have been consulting with Mount Allison on this, as Mount Allison has already developed protocols in place in regards to that type of communication. And as well, in some instances, communication on events or emergencies could cross over between the university and the municipality. Staff have been had the opportunity to review the results of the July off-leash dog park. Results of the survey are attached, as I mentioned. Survey closed with 472 respondents. And following the special meeting of council on September 3rd, where preference was given to establishing the town's first dog park in Beach Hill, staff will now proceed with some design options and costs, identify a preferred location, and ensure that it does not compromise the future development of the park, and further refine operational maintenance costs. The Mayor's Roundtable on Climate Change is scheduled to meet on September 10th, 2019. Roundtable originated from an extensive motion back at the April Council meeting in response to climate strike event on March 15th. The Roundtable is intended to present ideas, projects, etc. to Council and lead up to our 2020 budget process, and host facilitated community forum to help generate ideas in early fall. And just as part of that, I'm just wondering if Mr. Burke might just touch on the base of the makeup of the people participating in that roundtable.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Michaud. We've been really pleased with the response, I guess, we've gotten from a lot of the groups and individuals who we've contacted. But just to give you a snapshot, I guess, we have representation from our own Corporate Affairs and Strategic Development Liaison Group on behalf of Council and the Mayor, of course. Some senior staff will be there, as long as representation from Mount Allison University on the academic side as well as on the student side. The Mount Allison Students' Union will be represented. And then we've approached some private consultants, Ducks Unlimited Canada, as well as the Tenchmere High School, Marshview Middle School, and some community leaders as well as a representative from the business community. So this will be an exploratory meeting with the hope that this group will be able to pull together the logistics for a larger open public forum, which will then be able to receive feedback from the entire community.
Property inquiries continue to be steady. The town recently wrapped up our first online advertising strategy, which targeted retirees, young entrepreneurs and families, students and tourists. The analytics of the study are currently being evaluated to determine the overall success of the campaign, and we are confident that the project helped increase Sackville's profile and will help convince the target audiences to make Sackville their destination to live and visit. And finally, staff continue to work with Crandall Engineering on the overall Phase 2 project, and particularly some of the environmental impact assessment requirements. The bird study and plant study, along with the wetland delineation for the quarry, are now in draft form, and finishing touches are being added to the town's wetland compensation and monitoring plan. Staff recently walked the site with Canadian Wildlife Services, along with Crandall Engineering and Stantec, as we work through the wetland compensation plan requirements derived from the EIA. We are delighted that the CWS will be recognizing various parts of the project as our compensation requirements. We are looking forward to watching the pond change over time with additional vegetation and wildlife, and importantly, tracking this succession with the help of Madison University. Staff are currently evaluating what additional work can be carried out with the remaining budget, which will require council approval. That's my report.
Questions on the report? Councillor Evans, please.
Yeah, this is a delightful report. There are all kinds of good things in there, and I'm just going to call attention to one that I already mentioned, the retention pond. It worked out really well for a major rain event, but our overall goal hasn't changed. It's to be able to deal with a catastrophic event, the 1-in-100-year storm. So the fact that it's dealt with a very heavy rainfall is great. It doesn't mean that we're done yet. So I'm pleased that it worked well for a big storm, but we still have work to do. And the second one, as the person who made what is referred to as an extensive motion, I am delighted that this roundtable is being put together. I'm really hopeful that good stuff will come from this, and it has my support.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? You have a motion? Thank you.
I move that council award RFP number 2019-08, marketing plan to Portfolio, Moncton NB, in the amount of $15,000 plus HST.
Moved by Councillor Michaud, seconded by Councillor Tower. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Councillor Michaud. That is it for that. New business, I did ask if anybody was to introduce a couple of the items we had talked about. No one has wanted to do that tonight. I wanted to deal with that a little bit longer. So there is no new business, and we are to question period.
I have a few questions. First of all, I'm wondering if we have any indication on the Lafford application of how many multi-unit dwellings are anticipated there in that 22 acres of property.
Ms. Bickford, do you have any number? I haven't seen one.
At this point, as I indicated at the last meeting, it is conceptual, so finalization will depend on where property lines get placed, and from there it'll determine the number. But, I mean, it's fair to say that there will be a number. It's not going to be one standalone building. There will be a number of buildings that will be placed on there.
And my other question on that has to do with the other, what is called a senior care facility. What is that exactly? Is it a nursing home for people who can't live independently?
Essentially, it would be a nursing home that provides additional care. So whatever form that could take and to what level would follow with the proposal on who ended up looking at the management of that nursing home or nursing care facility, whatever
Okay,
term should be that it
yeah.
would take on.
So the independent living units will be single level. How about the nursing home? Is that more of a high rise?
At this time, that level of detail isn't not.
Thank you. I have some questions too. I'm not quite sure I fully understand about the abatos that we were talking about here. DTI says there's one they will never replace. I'm wondering which one that is. Is it the one where they cleaned out 3 to 4 feet of silt in
Yes.
advance of this storm?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, that's the one behind Armtech.
Right.
Now, there was talk about reditching halfway the DTI undertook. I'm wondering where that reditching was.
Mr. Acton?
Yes, the reditching was from that same abadeau behind Armtech, so basically from the dike or from the abadeau over to Crescent Street. So basically the ditch where the water leads from our retention pond, goes under CN track, goes under Crescent Street, and then works its way out to the abadeau. That was the ditch that they were working on digging out, and I haven't even confirmed whether they were able to finish that today, but they were working on it again today.
Okay, thank you. Now, where would the town like to see DTI put the new abateau? Is that the one that is in the plan for Phase 3 near the Public Works, or near the sewage lagoon, rather?
Yes, that is the one that both the minister and the deputy minister were talked about, was that one.
Okay, thank you. Finally, I have a question about Lawrence Street Phase 2. It seems as though 1.6 million has been spent. There's 2.1 million in eligible funding. I'm wondering if that's the money, that $500,000, the difference, would go to development of a quarry retention pond, or what the plan is for that money.
Mr. Beal?
Thanks for the question. The amount that we have claimed is not finalized as of yet. So the 1.6 million that we have claimed, we only claim it as we pay the invoices. So throughout the Birch Hill construction contract, there was 15% holdback. We have not released any holdback yet. So that those holdbacks will be released, and then we will submit another claim. So when everything is complete, we've got an estimate available remaining of between $250,000 and $270,000. Staff, the engineer, Jamie, Core Projects, CAO, and myself have just started meeting to determine the exact amount of funds remaining in the infrastructure. And like I say, it's between $250,000 and $270,000, including HST, and at 100% funding. That would include the federal, provincial, and municipal portion. So we're just starting meeting, and we expect probably at the October discussion group, there will be something presented on that.
Thank you. Finally, there was talk about the retaining wall that won't be built this year. Is that the wall at Wright Street and Main?
Yes. Yes.
That's the one where there's a problem for motorists who are coming out trying to see down Main Street.
Well, I think we're talking about the same spot, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just looking for some specifics on the recreation report. That was a very specific number, 3,764 participants from the 22 programs and the 7 larger scale events that took place this summer. I'm just wondering, what's the breakout on that? Is that the registered programs specifically, or does that include the 7 larger scale events? And where does that number come from? It's just very specific, 3,764.
Mr. Pride, please.
Sure. Thank you, Shelley. Our summer staff keep track of attendance at all of our programs, so the 7 events are part of those numbers. Those would be estimates. But then the programs themselves are specific. So, for example, New Brunswick Day, we would have an estimated amount. I don't have it in front of me, say 500 people. And something like our Junior Einstein program, they'd have a specific number of people that attended that day, on a particular day.
So the total is a combination of?
It's a combination of estimate and, yeah.
And quantitative
And,
data?
yeah.
Okay.
So it would be possible to get the 22 programs that are registered through like day camps or things like that, it would be possible to have those numbers broken out from the 3764? Yeah, okay. My other question is with regards to the fall fair. Sorry to beat a dead horse on this one here, but with Lucienne going into the Vogue again with fixed seating of 279 seats, can you disclose yet what the budget is on that event and what the town contribution is and what Lucienne is being paid? I'm obviously looking towards drawing comparisons to the Joel Plaskett event and the $3,000 plus loss on that. I'm just wondering what the town is subsidizing versus what the cultural impact is to residents.
Sure, I don't have that in front of me. We booked them a few months ago, so I'd have to double check to be 100% positive, but I can get that for you.
Okay, so 9 days out from the event, as an event promoter, I'm checking my ticket sales constantly to see where I'm at so I can increase my advertising, so I can make sure that the event is a success.
So let me just understand your question.
Yep.
You said loss. Are you referring to public money that went into that as opposed to
Yeah, because with the Joel
standalone
Plaskett event, there was, I know not everything's measured fiscally, but there was an over $3,000 loss from 180 tickets. That was all that happened for the Joel Plaskett event. So I'm just wondering, knowing that and knowing that it was brought up and 9 days out from the event, what are the ticket sales on that? I'm assuming the town is contributing to that event, or it wouldn't be put in the report. So I'm wondering where we're at for the ticket sales for the Vogue event.
Again, I'm not positive. We have online ticket sales. We're selling them at the Mount Allison Student Union. We're selling them at the front desk here, so I'd have to look into it. I'm not positive.
Okay, I'm just suggesting that 9 days out from promoting events, that might be something that you might want to look into.
But I think it's important, though, just to note that there are a lot of services that the town supplies out of the budget. For example, the rink requires several $100,000 a year to be subsidized to allow it to work. Part of the idea is the community developmental portion and trying to find a way to get people to come to town. So we, in our budgeting, which we'll do again in the next couple of weeks, we set budgets that we're willing to put into that. And then staff's job is to try to reduce as much as possible out of that budget to hold an event. So it's not a loss of money, it's an investment by the community to deliver a service that doesn't make a profit, as opposed to Sappy Fest, which is run for a profit.
Question to demonstrate to the public that when things are contributed to an event, Fall Fest is a wonderful event. I'm just wondering what the tickets are, how, we should know at this point in time and be able to ask the question where the ticket sales are at.
Oh, I'm not saying, I just want to clear up for the community
Oh,
that
no, I
that's how
understand.
it works, right? It's not a loss as you described it, we'll describe that there's a difference between the revenue and the amount of cost attached to it, yes. And you're right, we can get that data.
Plan or communication plan, or what I'm hearing, all these events are currently being coordinated and operating without any, I'm still trying to figure out what the checks and balances are, because we're discussing, Councillor Michaud said that there was a marketing plan being created. There's a strategic plan, there's a communication plan. So as a resident, looking at these expenditures, however small, I recognize they're not, road construction or abattoirs or things like that, but they are still accountable taxpayers and money. And I'm looking at the report and I'm seeing there's very quantifiable things that happen in all the other departments with all the other reports, but these ones are quite vague. So I'm just looking for the quantifiable evidence. And I think it's a fair question 9 days out to say, where are we at with this?
Right. And we've had the same question on the rink since the town took it over, and we can't get a definitive answer to what the investment is in the rink. So it is an ongoing question. CIO, wish to add to that?
Sure, I'm just going to say the same thing, maybe, Your Worship, but we're not private, you know, it's public, and the town makes their decision in terms of council making a decision, allocate so much money to provide programs and services, and we run events. Unlike, as you know, as a private person, if you see and you want to run an event, you can make $1, you might do it. That's not why we do our business and deliver events the way you do. So you keep criticizing the manner in which the staff are delivering these events. These people up here will decide whether or not it's good or bad for the town, and the electorate will decide whether the event should or should not happen, not whether or not we're making money. We don't charge for roads. We don't charge 100% for the arena. We don't charge for sidewalks. We're not trying to make $1 on events. We're different. I don't think you do understand. So you got to get it right. You don't understand. He's not trying to make a profit. Sorry, Your Worship.
I see it's a very hot topic, so I'm just asking questions, sir, in a public forum, as is a democratic, you know. So it's not about getting it right, it's just raising questions.
The answers.
I'm not getting.
I know that. I know.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions?
Can I add a comment to that, please?
Okay. Just hang on a sec, Keith. Councilor Michaud, please.
I think it's important, whether it's for profit or what, to evaluate the services that we are providing as a municipality, to understand if it's working, if it's not working. And I think that's all part and parcel of it. So as a councillor, I would hope to get the information so that when budget time comes, that an evaluation can be done so that a determination, to help a determination be made in regards to a line item in the budget. So I think the thing is here is that in order to get to that, this is me, I need to have an evaluation and an understanding and to get to those budgets. So to get to that number and saying, okay, does this make sense? And, you know, it's not necessarily, you know, I think it's important information. And I know it would be important information for myself come budget deliberation time. So I think it's getting an understanding of what's being asked here. It's for evaluation, not just for a councillor, but for our municipality and the citizens here. So, anyway.
Well, at budget time, all that information is presented. Councilor Michaud, and you as a former member of council know that. And this council has that opportunity to receive all that information. At the end of the day, you make the decisions. Many of, even after you've made the decision and asked staff to, you know, proceed on it, you still vote on whether or not you want to go ahead on a project or not. So you're the evaluator. You ask us what to do. We're doing what you've asked us to do. It's up to you. If you choose at any point in time that you don't want to do it as one member of council, you have every opportunity to voice that opinion. Not one of those people out there, not I, have that choice. We're just trying to deliver and do what you ask. You ask more questions than anybody. We answer them as best as we can to try and give you the information. We'll do the same at budget time. I mean, it's not complicated. You try and suggest that you should evaluate it. I would say that, you know, ask your questions, and we're trying to assist you in that evaluation. So, you know, but to make that statement suggests that we're just going off willy-nilly spending money without a care. That's unfair.
I didn't say that.
You said it needs to be evaluated. You should have listened to what you just said. It needs to be evaluated, and you're implying that we're just spending money and we don't care. That's not the case. Wow, was right.
Okay. Mr. Carter.
Well, as our CAO has just pointed out, that you fellows are looking out for the best interest of the town. That's a good thing. And I'm a taxpayer, so I have the right to ask a question. Same as this lady here is a taxpayer, and we have right to ask the question, and we would expect to get an answer that we could understand. But I listened to their answers to her questions before, and they were just running in circles and not saying anything. That's what bothers me about the staff and the councillors not questioning them enough, because they just go along and do as they like. And you might say they don't, but it sure looks like that from a business side of it.
What's your question, Keith?
Okay. We're gonna do Bridge Street and Highway 106. What are we going to do to them? You say, Dwayne said that we were having a lot of problems with Highway 106, or Queens Road.
So
And
you're asking about.
I'm reading what they're gonna do. They're gonna do the storm sewer and the curb and a road base. They're not gonna touch any of the infrastructure that's underneath?
Oh, it's a, go ahead, Mr. Acton. It's a dual responsibility, is it not?
Sure. Are we talking about the
Five-year
reconstruction
plan,
of
item
Queens
2?
Road?
Yes, the 5-year capital plan is where I'm picking the,
Designated highways, 5-year.
Five-year plan.
Second element being 106.
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier this evening that we were doing curb and gutters, sidewalk, storm, water, sewer. We were doing total reconstruction. If we did that section of Queens Road, we were doing it all.
well, it doesn't say it in the plan, okay? That's what I'm saying, it doesn't on any of them. And it was only done in the 70s.
Storm, curb, road, base, asphalt, 300 meters. I don't know how much
Yeah, but-
detail you want.
But listen, you're doing the storm, that's storm sewer, that's not water or sewer.
Yeah.
Oh, are we doing the water and sewer too? It should say this, if that's what we're looking at, okay? So that when it gets down the road, oh, we didn't budget for that, because I've seen this before.
Total reconstruction. What's total reconstruction to you?
I don't know, but you list everything else.
Total reconstruction is total reconstruction. All utilities, water, sewer, storm, curb, gutter, sidewalk.
Well, everything else you fellas want to have written right out, and that's what I was questioning on and what you're actually looking at doing. That was my question on it.
So
And-
there's,
Okay.
so there's two parts to that, Keith. One is that, yes, we get all the detail when council looks at it in budget time, and that's a summary document that allows us to remind us what we had talked about. Your point's well taken. The data that you have doesn't reflect what we know, so we appreciate. That's a good point.
As taxpayers, we should know. You know, it shouldn't be just half presented to us.
Yep.
That's the way I'm looking at it. And the other thing is that the way I look at it is that the councillors that here have to do, in my mind, ask more questions of the staff to keep them in line. Now, we've lost three.
Have you got a question, Keith?
I'm not allowed to ask a question?
Well, I'm waiting for it.
What's the question you're looking for, Keith?
The question I'm looking for is the question that I was asking, or what I was asking, was that the councillors should be asking more questions on some of these items that we okay. That's the thing that I'm looking at.
Right. So that's a statement, though.
That's a
It's not-
statement.
Not a question.
Okay, well then, but whether it's a question or a statement, there's a lot of people that ask me a lot of questions, and a lot of people won't come here, and I will, and that's the thing, that I don't know, it boggles the mind.
Well, we've had a lot of people say that we should do what the staff says, and then we've had a lot of people say, you only do what the staff says. It comes with the territory. Yeah. Any other questions?
Your Worship, I made a presentation last week on the 3rd of September on behalf of the Tantrum Ray TV Club, and you said at that meeting you would canvass the councillors to get their opinion. I'm just wondering, do you have that result of their opinion?
No, we do not have a consensus, and we have asked staff to prepare a briefing for council, so that it'll be coming up in the next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, Sharon Hicks again. Mentioned tonight in the meeting, I'm so rattled now. They were talking about the formation of the Mayor's Roundtable Committee for climate change, Roundtable on Climate Change, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So that is specifically only focusing on climate change, is that correct?
Sorry, it's,
That roundtable committee will be focusing strictly on climate change issues?
that was what the request was from the students, yes.
Okay. So my question then is, in the Business Development Strategy Report delivered by Tyler Mathis in May of this year, one of the recommendations called for the formation of a Mayor's Roundtable Committee, and that was to look at business and economic development issues. So my question is that roundtable committee going to happen? And if so, is there any formation plans in place yet? Or where does that stand right now?
When I think it was noted that there is an element of the business strategy being developed right now, and it'll be brought forward through the budget of how it'll be implemented. And those structures will be debated at that point, and whether we want to put money into structures or whether we want to change that.
So there may or may not be a committee, a roundtable committee.
That'll be council's decision at budget time, yeah.
Okay. All right. Then my final thing is, on the final page of tonight's agenda in the report, there's a mention of the town's wetland compensation and monitoring plan. Now, I'm kind of fuzzy on what that entails. It wasn't really explained all that well. What does that amount to? What is a wetland compensation and monitoring plan? How does it work?
Well, generally speaking, Canada has a no net loss of wetland habitat policy, and they've had that for, 30 years. And any development that works on a wetland or a designated wetland, which is what we had in Lawrence Street, that criteria applies. And it is up to Environment Canada, or a portion of it, Wildlife Service may be involved, to make a professional assessment of how much wetland you have impacted with your project. You then have to provide a variety of mitigation measures to make up that loss. So in terms of that's kind of surprised you haven't heard it. It's a fundamental piece of environmental assessment and Canadian environmental policy. So that's the structure of it. In terms of the specifics, that would have been a part of the environmental impact assessment and its implication and implementation of Canada's environmental requirements. And so the discussion today was about the status of what the federal professionals have analyzed in terms of the impact versus what was there before. Now, I don't want to misstate it, but Mr. Burke can correct me if I'm wrong, but what has happened is that once again, this town has done something that others have not done and actually improved the wetland habitat versus what was there. And the biologists have had a lot of difficulty grasping when they start with a no net loss that you've actually improved wetlands in what you've done. And so the question with them took longer to say, well, how do you quantify that and how do we get a credit for it and where does it go from here? Versus usually you have to go build this or you have to go create this in order to make up for what you did. So ours was an unusually positive event for the environment, and that's where we stand at this point. I don't think we've got any quantitative. They've agreed that we deserve some form of a credit for future developments in town that might affect a wetland.
Still a little uncertain as to a credit for what? So give you a credit for what? Meaning you don't have to do something that you would otherwise have to do? Can you,
but
break it down a little better?
Because our activities have created an improved wetland and more wetland habitat and created more positive for the target species in those areas, we've actually increased wetland efficiency and effectiveness in town by this project. And so there is no loss, there's actually a gain in their view. So you can't actually give us a credit because it's already finished, but that's what they're grappling with now is, well, how do we attribute a credit to the town now? So it will probably be for future potential impacts on wetlands elsewhere.
When will you know the results of all that and what the long-term ramifications might be?
I don't know, do we have that yet?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Sharon, it's, I guess the requirement is to monitor for a period of 5 years. So at the end of the 5-year period, the technical review committee that's made up of federal and provincial representatives will indicate what that credit may be.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Other questions?
I just have one question. What was the total bill for Birchhill doing the pond?
Do you have that total in front of you? We may have to get it to you, Keith, I'm not
Okay,
sure.
no, but that's why I'm asking you
Yeah.
here. So that's just plain and simple question.
Yeah, so we'll make the commitment on the tape here that we will get you that number for the final. Is Birch Hill completed now, or is there any outstanding still? It's probably
Birchill is completed, and I do believe that their total bill came in within the approved budget, but I can verify that and report on that number. And the only thing remaining to be paid to them is the holdbacks that are still outstanding, which will be paid at a 60-day window, and I think before the end of this year.
Okay, so we'll get that number to you, Keith. Okay, any other question? Moved, seconded by Councillor Finney. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you all.